If you think rest is lazy, this video will wreck your definition of strength in the best way. We've glorified burnout and demonized stillness, but real power, it comes from knowing when to pause. If you've ever felt guilty for slowing down, watch this. It might be the permission you've been waiting for your whole life. Welcome to the Mind ToolKit, where we don't just chase answers, we question the questions. If you've ever felt guilty for slowing down, this video might be the reset your life needs. Because sometimes the most powerful move isn't pushing harder, it's choosing to pause. Before we step into it, hit subscribe if this speaks to you. And like and share this video if it makes you think. Now take a breath and let's explore why rest isn't the absence of strength, but the source of it. They told you hard work was the answer. From the first gold star in school to the corporate employee of the month plaque, the message has been clear. Effort equals worth. And so you kept pushing. Even when your body said rest, your mind whispered, earn it. You believed, like most of us, that the grind was the gateway, that sacrificing today would buy a better tomorrow. But the truth is, hard work is not a universal currency. In many systems, it's not even the most valued one. Some climb faster with connections, charm, or simply timing. Others burn out quietly on the edges, invisible despite their sweat. Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "You are what you do, not what you say you'll do." But what happens when what you do is endless striving, chasing a horizon that moves every time you approach it? It creates an identity crisis, where self-worth becomes entangled with output, and silence feels like failure. This isn't discipline, it's desperation dressed in productivity. It's a socially accepted addiction that numbs deeper questions. What am I building? Who am I becoming? And what price am I really paying? We rarely pause to ask if the ladder we're climbing leans against the right wall. The culture rewards movement, not direction, so we applaud the busy and question the still. Yet it is in stillness, not speed, that clarity lives. The body that never stops moving eventually collapses. The soul that never rests becomes hollow. And the mind that never questions the script it was handed ends up performing a life that was never its own. Somewhere along the way, being busy became the safest excuse and the easiest applause. "I'm so busy" stopped being a complaint and started sounding like success. It told the world I'm wanted, I'm needed, I matter. In a culture wired for performance, the absence of time proved importance. You didn't need to say you were valuable, your burnout said it for you. But what if busyness isn't a measure of ambition, but avoidance? What if it's just how we run from silence, from discomfort, from the mirror? Jung believed that people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And nothing is more socially acceptable than staying too busy to think. So we fill calendars, chase goals, stack obligations, not always because we must, but because stopping feels too exposing. In the pause, we might hear what we've been ignoring. Slowness, once associated with presence, is now equated with laziness. Rest, once sacred, is now guilty. We apologize for not being productive on weekends. We feel uneasy when we don't have a deadline. Peace isn't celebrated, it's questioned. If you're not constantly in motion, people wonder if you've lost your drive. But motion without direction is just noise. And exhaustion, worn long enough, turns into identity. The irony is that the most alive moments, real connection, insight, growth, often emerge in stillness. But they don't announce themselves with urgency. They wait, quietly, until you slow down enough to meet them, until you realize that worth isn't proved in how busy you are, it's remembered in how deeply you lived. We set goals to grow, or so we say, to become better, to build something meaningful. But what if some goals are just well-dressed escapes. In a culture where self-worth is often measured by milestones, chasing goals becomes the most admired form of running away. You're not just launching a business, you're distracting from the loneliness. You're not just working out daily, you're punishing a body you've never made peace with. You're not just building a future, you're avoiding the parts of the past that still sting. American culture loves the narrative of the self-made, the one who didn't stop until they made it. But what we don't ask is, why were they running so hard? What pain were they refusing to feel? Carl Jung reminded us, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. In that sense, many of us aren't following dreams, we're following trauma patterns cloaked as ambition. Productivity becomes a mask, goals become armor, the calendar a shield. And the moment anyone says, maybe slow down, the fear surfaces. If I stop, everything I've been avoiding might catch up. So we keep going. Not out of purpose, but panic. Not from vision, but avoidance. Real growth isn't always visible. It often happens in stillness, in sitting with the question you've been dodging, in facing the ache instead of covering it with more achievement. Because if you're always chasing something, you'll never learn to be with yourself. And if you don't know how to be with yourself, no finish line will ever feel like home. We've been taught to wear burnout like a badge, proof that we care, that we're trying, that we're worthy. Sleepless nights, skipped meals, back-to-back meetings, all offered as sacrifice on the altar of success. In American culture, exhaustion isn't just tolerated, it's glamorized. The more you suffer for your goals, the more noble your pursuit seems. But suffering isn't the same as succeeding. Burnout isn't a measure of impact, it's a sign of misalignment. Real success doesn't scream, it settles. It feels like peace, not panic. It aligns your actions with your values, not just your calendar. When you're in alignment, work energizes instead of drains. You're not proving your worth, you're expressing your purpose. You're not chasing validation, you're living in clarity. The truth is, many people appear successful and feel hollow. They've climbed ladders that leaned against the wrong walls. They've built empires but lost themselves in the process. And because society praises the outcome, no one questions the cost. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." But pain isn't the goal. Clarity is. And that clarity comes not from pushing harder, but from pausing long enough to ask, is this me? Is this right? Alignment isn't a finish line. It's a way of moving. It's when your goals match your truth, your schedule matches your soul. It's not about having more. It's about needing less to feel whole. So no, success isn't how much you can endure before breaking. It's how deeply you can live without losing yourself. And maybe the real flex is peace, not pressure. Fulfillment, not fatigue. Alignment, not applause. In a culture that worships productivity, stillness is often misunderstood as laziness. If you're not moving, not building, not posting, not chasing, you must be falling behind. But what if the truth is far gentler and far more human? What if you're not lazy, you're just exhausted? Exhausted from constantly performing value, from pretending you're fine when your soul is fraying, from carrying silent weights no one sees because admitting struggle feels like failure in a system that celebrates burnout. Many people are not unmotivated, they're depleted. They're waking up tired not because they slept too much, but because they've been in survival mode for too long. Carl Jung warned that people grow through pain, but he never said we should live in it. Yet hustle culture expects that. Continuous output without pause, without reflection, without care. So when the body resists, we shame it. When the mind can't focus, we label it weak. When emotions surface, we suppress them with caffeine, dopamine hits, and one more task on the to-do list. But exhaustion is not failure. It's feedback. It's the body's way of asking, can we please stop pretending this is sustainable? It's a call to rest, to repair, to return to the self beneath the performance. Laziness is not your enemy. The refusal to listen to your limits is. True discipline isn't pushing harder at all costs. It's knowing when to pause so you can keep going with intention. You're not broken. You're not weak. You're carrying too much for too long with too little care. And maybe what you need right now isn't more pressure. It's permission to rest without guilt. Because rest isn't indulgent. It's essential. What if everything you were taught about strength was wrong? What if rest, the very thing you've been taught to feel guilty about, is the most radical act of power in a world that never stops demanding more? Rest isn't the opposite of ambition. It's what sustains it. It's where clarity sharpens, resilience rebuilds, and identity detangles from output. In a culture that idolizes the grind, choosing stillness is revolutionary. Rest is where you meet the parts of yourself that hustle kept buried. It's not quitting, it's recalibrating. It's not weakness, it's wisdom. Lions don't sprint all day. Seasons don't bloom forever. The most powerful forces in nature know when to pause. Why don't we? We're told to keep pushing, but rarely taught how to stop, how to breathe, how to be, how to listen inward. That's why so many of us confuse burnout with purpose, chaos with progress, movement with meaning. But stillness reveals what speed conceals. When you stop, really stop, you don't lose your edge. You find your center. So maybe the real power move isn't showing how much you can take, but knowing when to let go. Because peace isn't passive, it's intentional. And the person who leads from rest leads with depth, not just direction. Thank you for spending these quiet minutes with us. If something in this message stirred something in you, subscribe to the Mind ToolKit channel. Not just for more videos, but for more space in your life where truth is allowed to land. Like, share, or save this for the days you forget. You're not lazy. You're human. And rest is your birthright.